Welcome to the program today. My name is Maldo Gonzalez, here with a special guest to talk about our upcoming conference, which is May 19th through the 21st. And we have been asking the speakers to come and share a few words about what they're going to be talking about. And just as a side note, the conference is almost sold out. There's going to be over 800 people there on site in Colorado Springs. But for those of you that cannot make it, you can go to our prophecywatchers.com website, scroll down, and you can see the banner where we are going to have streaming available for those that can't make it. And it will be of all 25 speakers and a couple other bonuses that are going on there. So take a look at that. But Tom Hughes, welcome.
Hey, this is great. Thank you.
It's going to be exciting to meet you in person, certainly here in a couple weeks. But kind of share with our audience, kind of as a teaser, a little bit about what you're going to be talking about at the conference.
I can't remember. No, I'll try. Let me see. I know I'm going to be talking about, I think my first message I'm doing, Mondo, is it's a mess, but Jesus is coming back. And I think for me, that is the most important thing for people to remember, because there's so much that is giving people their anxiety, they're getting discouraged. They thought Jesus was going to come back 20 years ago, and now some people even think we're in the tribulation period. And it's just a good reminder. And I will point out some of the messes that are out there, but the reality of it is Jesus is coming back. That day is coming, and I'm so excited, Mondo. As you know, I just came back from Israel a couple days ago, and being able to stand in the area of Mount Carmel, looking into the Jezreel Valley, and knowing that Jesus is coming back, and we're coming with him into that spot. I'm excited about that. So I get really excited when I think Jesus is coming on his white horse, and he's going to cast the false prophet and Antichrist into the lake of fire. I can't wait for that day, because this place is messed up.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that for a minute in the sense that, you know, those of us that have been watching prophecy for decades, how do we not get burned out?
Yeah, well, that's a real good question. So I would have to say for myself, I started teaching Bible prophecy about 30 years ago, and it was just before coronavirus. I was getting really discouraged. I remember asking the Lord, why am I doing this? It's like people are always mad at me, and they mock you and make fun of you, as you guys all know. And you just feel abused all the time. And then all of a sudden, things started to change with the pandemic, and people started having more questions. And I am thinking, Lord, you are preparing me to be able to give the truth for the time that we're going into. And it's given me a lot more energy, prophetic energy, I would say. So when I look at it, you have to keep your eyes fixed on the prize. You have to keep your eyes fixed on Jesus Christ. You cannot stop and look at the signs. Here's the problem. When you look at the Bible, Jesus gives us signs. The Bible's full of hundreds of signs, Old Testament and New Testament, that are in relation to the second coming of Christ. But nowhere are we told to stop where the signs are. And the problem is we kind of camp out where the sign is. If you see a sign that says, let's say your favorite restaurant, Cracker Barrel, is this right down, it's 2 exits up, and you see a Cracker Barrel sign on the road. You don't pull over and park your car at the sign and pull out a fork and knife and wait. No, the sign points to something great. The problem is we camp out at the sign. We have earthquakes and famines and pestilences and all these different things. We have wars and rumors of wars. So we start putting into context coronavirus, Russia, Ukraine, Joe Biden, everything else, and you start looking at these things going, and we hear the news coming out of Israel, and you just start to get really, your blood pressure goes up, you can't handle it anymore. The problem is you cannot camp at those things. You must remember all signs point to something greater. The Cracker Barrel points to your favorite restaurant, if that's your favorite restaurant, And then, and the signs of the second coming of Christ, in and of themselves, they're discouraging things. Jesus gave them as warnings. When you see this happen, look up and lift up your head, or your redemption draws near. When Jesus said, lift up your head, that literally means with expectant joy. So it's hard to, if you only look at the signs, you must look at what the signs are pointing to.
I think that's a very good point. And even really the subject of your topic about it's a mess. I think oftentimes people in the church, again, I pastored in the sense of you see people's, that discouragement, but Part of that discouragement, too, can be rooted in the fact that people can be under this impression that because we believe in a rapture, a pre-trib rapture that's going to happen before the 7-year tribulation, potentially that things aren't going to get messy. Do we have the promise that it's never going to get messy for us?
No, and I think there's been a misunderstanding. Probably some teachers over the decades have misinformed the people, but there's really a huge misunderstanding. Listen, Jesus promised persecution and suffering to all those who are his people. If you look at the rest of the world, you look at Africa, China, the Muslim world, and you look at what Christians go through, no, they've been suffering since the time of Christ, since the beginning of Pentecost, back in the book of Acts. Christians have gone through all kinds of suffering. The United States of America, as has been the last couple of 100 years, has been in a bubble. It's been completely different from anything that's existed in the rest of the world ever. And it's been this bubble of freedom of speech, which we now see going away, freedom of religion, and we've had this, and it's just been a great joy. And we're not used to anything different. And this question, Mondo, it primarily comes from Americans. We're just going to have easy street, and then the rapture is going to take place. Listen, judgment begins at the house of God. And to think that Americans aren't going to go through any sufferings, if we just go back to 2019, if you and I were having a discussion about the next 2 years, and let's say you and I knew what was coming, people wouldn't believe us. Mm-hmm. Christians would not believe us. They'd say, no, we're going to be raptured before anything like that starts to happen. We look at the economy now, we look at food promises, even for Biden, we're going to have food shortages. You look at the supply chain. I don't live too far from Long Beach. When I drive out there to see some of my friends, I can see the ships that are offshore. I can see the supply chain problem. So when you look at it, listen, if we're here for 6 more months, you better believe that we could be in for a very rocky road. Well, what if we're here for another year? What if we're still here for 2 more years? And I know Christians don't like hearing that, but we're much better being wise and being prepared and thinking like Joseph thought. You know, Joseph was given an understanding, wisdom from God, and he acted upon it. And I think Christians would be wise to do the same. It doesn't mean you become this crazy person that just does, really wild stuff. But you've got to be stable in the Word. You need to be emotionally, spiritually fit. And the only way you're going to be emotionally fit is by being spiritually fit, understanding what the Word does say. And where Jesus says, pray that you may be counted worthy to escape these things, that's a reference to the tribulation itself. Mm-hmm. But listen, every generation of people, both saved and unsaved, they've gone through famines, they've gone through all kinds of crises, except for this strange bubble in America for the last couple of 100 years. But it looks like it's being popped, and judgment begins at the house of God. So my friends who tell me, since America still has a lot of Christians in it, we're not going to go through trial and tribulation. I don't see that in the Bible. In fact, I think that the Bible teaches differently. And I do think that God is preparing his bride right now too, and that's a lot of what is going on.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt when you think about Jesus' words that in this world you're going to have tribulation, little t, but be of good cheer. He's overcome the world. So as Christians, I think, especially in the church, again, I love the church, but oftentimes we would we would allow our theology to be interpreted by our current circumstances. And hey, we love our comforts. And then when our comforts get disrupted, we all of a sudden think the sky is falling. When in reality, when we look at our brothers and sisters around the world, the sky has been falling in the sense for them for a long time. So we don't get this special exemption from general tribulation.
Yeah, I think that American Christians tend to feel that we're going to get a special exemption. But I mean, really, we need to look at it and say, okay, the last 2.5 years, things have really changed. We're being prepared to receive something in order to buy or sell. I mean, these things are pretty obvious. And so much anxiety, so much depression, drug addiction is up, alcoholism is up, divorce rates are up. And you start looking at the weird perverted stuff. You would think that through the trials and tribulations of the last couple of years that Americans would look and go, you know what, maybe we should rethink this godless direction that we're going. Mm-hmm. And so we've become a more evil nation at the same time, as a whole. And I look back to the prophecies of ancient Israel and ancient Judah, and if God judged Israel who he chose and the Jews who he chose, what on earth makes Americans think that's not going to happen? Listen, when the Babylonians came against Judah, Daniel lived there, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, Jeremiah stayed there. He suffered greatly. Ezekiel was taken off. So you start looking, going, why do American Christians think that way? But we can really be well prepared if we understand the Bible, and we won't be discouraged. Mm-hmm. I think that's why somebody like you or myself or some of our colleagues can teach on these things and still smile, because we know the end of the story. We go, hey, we don't camp out on these things. We know these things all point to the awesomeness that Jesus is coming again, and it's almost over. This whole show is almost over, and the Lord is going to deal with all of these wicked things that are taking place. He'll bring in everlasting righteousness. He's going to put an end to transgression and sin, and Jesus is going to rule and reign from Jerusalem, and it's going to be absolutely amazing.
Awesome. Well, hey, appreciate your time, and we're going to see you at the conference. Should be great.
All right. I look forward to it. 2 weeks away, I believe.
Yeah.
Or a week away. I know I'm going to be there. I know I got my plane ticket, so I know I'm going.
That's awesome. I mean, it is a mess, but Jesus is coming. So all of you who are watching, and we'll see you at the conference. That's going to be Tom's message, and it's going to be good. Again, it's going to be a conference of hope and encouragement as well as truth, and it's exciting times, as Tom mentioned. So we will see you in a couple weeks. Otherwise, we'll see you streaming.